Hello everybody, Jake here, and welcome to the hobby. We are back with another episode of Off the Top, and I get to talk about what I think is probably one of the most interesting topic in collecting, which is the accumulation of a collection. How do you go from a very small collection to a larger collection without having to insert more money into it? I think that's a big thing for a lot of people is, hey, collecting can be extremely expensive. How can you start with a smaller collection and become a larger collection without having to constantly buy more stuff? And to me, collecting has always been a game about accumulating resources, exchanging resources between other players, talking with other players, communicating with other players, and ultimately accumulating the best collection for your own personal self. Whatever you think is super awesome, I want you to have the best collection possible, starting off with a smaller collection that you enjoy into an even larger collection that you are going to enjoy even more. Next week, I am going to Pokemon Worlds, which is probably one of the best times to actually play the game of the trade economy in Pokemon, because if you didn't know and you've never been to Pokemon Worlds has a very interesting rule set. One of the rules at Pokemon World is that they don't really allow the exchange of money. You really just can't buy and sell stuff at Pokemon Worlds unless you are a licensed vendor. But there are a ton of players and collectors from all around the world accumulating to this one singular event, and they are all bringing a ton of really cool stuff from whatever region they are. We're gonna have a ton of South Korean players with a ton of really cool South Korean promo cards. We are gonna have a bunch of Chinese players with a ton of cool Chinese promo cards, and a ton of Japanese player with a ton of cool Japanese promo cards. Same with the European and the Brazilians and the South Americans and Latin Americans too. So it's a huge hodgepodge of collectors from all around the globe that are looking to exchange Pokemon cards. If you're not going to Pokemon Worlds to experience any of like the Pokemon Center or any of the events or even the players, I just think seeing all these other collectors accumulate in one place and exchanging and trading cards with them is one of the most fun experience you can actually have at Pokemon World. So I'm bringing a ton of cards that I would love to trade with other collectors, and my ultimate goal is to start off with whatever amount of point accumulation that I have and end up with a larger point accumulation in my collection at the end of the day, right? I just want a cooler collection than where I started with. And Pokemon Worlds is one of the best places to play this game. So I want you to start thinking about your collection as something of that nature. There are cards inside of your collection that you probably want to keep forever. And I'm not telling you to trade that off. I have cards inside of my collection I would never trade or exchange or sell to anyone. But I certainly do have cards inside of my collection that I care a little bit less about, and I use them as exactly what they are, which is really cool collectible items that I can use to exchange for other items that I value a lot more. For instance, at last year's World, I was exchanging with a ton of Japanese players to get these McDonald's Japanese promo booster packs, which contain a guaranteed Burger Pikachu. These were really cool because a ton of Japanese players brought a ton of them to Pokemon Worlds last year, and they were very readily available to the Japanese players, so they don't value these very highly. They can always get more from Japan. They can go home and find a ton of these at every single card shop in Shibuya. But I can't do that. Obviously, if I go all across San Francisco and all of the West Coast, I'm not going to find many packs of these because our McDonald's didn't have these promo packs. And at the same time, I was exchanging a ton of Japanese players for these gym promo packs from Japan. These were distributed for free to a lot of Japanese players for simply playing in Pokemon card tournaments and Pokemon sanctioned events directly in Japan. So these were given out for free, and they were basically very, very affordable for them because they can always get more. But again, I can't get more of these, so I really value these. So that's how you can actually exchange items that might be a little bit easier for you to get for some really cool stuff that is very hard for you to get. So I'm going to be bringing a ton of stuff to Pokemon Worlds, and I'm going to show you some of the items that I consider to be my favorite items to trade, because like I said, Pokemon Worlds is a trade sanction event. You are not allowed to exchange money monetarily between players, which means if someone has a really cool card and they see you giving them money to get that card, if you buy a card from someone, you can actually get kicked out of the event. It's actually taken very, very seriously. So let me show you some of the cool stuff that I'm bringing to Pokemon Worlds. So you really have to think about it in terms of, hey, what are some cards that other players would really value, but at the same time might be a little bit easier for you to get, right? For instance, one of the items that I'm bringing to Pokemon Worlds is a special delivery Charizard promo card. Why am I bringing this card? Because it wasn't available in China, Korea, Japan. Those regions didn't have this card. This card is an English exclusive promo card. And for that reason, it's a really cool item for them, or an item that I could get a little bit easier, right? I'm trying to pick items that I think would be a little bit more valuable to Japanese players. So I'm also bringing some really cool stuff, such as a holographic reverse Delta species Charizard, and I'm also bringing a set of Generations Charizard. Again, like these are very hard to get in Japan, but very easy to get over here in the US. Let me show you another example. I got the Meowth illustration rare. This is a pretty cheap illustration rare in English. In Japan, it is a Japanese promo card that goes for maybe like $100 plus. So for them, it's a little bit more expensive. For us, it's a little bit more affordable. Some other really cool items would be something like a Jolteon V illustration rare or a Jolteon V Max promo. These illustration rares or alt art cards were only available in Japan in very, very limited quantity. These cards in Japanese are going for thousands of dollars, but in English, they are $100 plus. So these are cards that Japanese players, again, would really value. Again, the Flareon VMAX for the exact same reason. Another really cool card that would be a great item to trade with other players is the Charizard VMAX. Again, this card was not even available in Japan. This card doesn't have a Japanese version. If they want to, they can get the English version, which is probably the next best thing. One of my personal favorite item that I was exchanging a ton of copies of last year to other players was actually the Moltres, Zapdos, and Articuno Stained Glass Bird. Again, a great example of global trade, basically. This card in English is currently going for roughly maybe like $150 raw. In Japanese, this card can go for thousands of dollars because it was only available inside of a very exclusive Japanese low print high-end set. However, in English, this is our Hidden Fates ETB promo card because a card was available inside of every single ETB, and Hidden Fates ETBs were regularly reprinted. The Stained Glass Bird Trio is still really, really cool, but it's only $150 for us, but thousands of dollars for a Japanese player. Some other interesting things that I'm going to be bringing are some graded cards, and like I said, because the Stained Glass Birds were incredibly popular last year, as I was just exchanging cards with players and seeing what they value, they really value this card. So I'm bringing a couple of copies of PSA 10s because also Japanese players, they only care about PSA 10s. They only care about PSA and they only care about PSA 10s. They do not take any other grading company. Something that I'm bringing for the first time ever this year is a One Piece card because obviously Japan really enjoy One Piece. And I think that they have some promo cards that are going to be really cool. For instance, I have the Dracule Mihawk. PSA Magazine exclusive Dracule Mihawk. So this is a PSA Magazine exclusive illustration art. I have a feeling this card doesn't exist in Japan. At least that's what I think. I don't know for sure if there's a Japanese version of it, but because it's a PSA exclusive art, I do believe that they don't have this version in Japanese. So I'm going to try to take a sealed copy and see if any Japanese players, if it catches their eye. I might value this card at closer to $90 to $100, right? But a Japanese player might value it at closer to $120 or $150. So that's an example of how we value the same card differently. You have to get out of the mindset that every single card has a market price and it doesn't have wiggle room. Prices are arbitrary. You can absolutely argue prices up and down depending on the condition of the card, the swirl, the hollow pattern, the quality. There's so many different ways that you can articulate and describe the reasons why you might value something more than someone else. It might be the same card, but depending on whether it's in Japan or in the US or China, it's valued very differently. And I'm also going to bring a Luffy card to trade for the first time ever. You know, I'm not a One Piece collector. So why do I have this inside of my collection? because as a collector, I have a lot of items inside of my collection that I know other people care about. So this is something that I've really developed over years of collecting. Is it's important to collect items so that you can have a robust inventory to exchange with other players. I have cards inside of my collection that I just think other players care about. And that's all it really takes for me to collect something. For instance, again, like this Luffy card might be a great item that a Japanese player or a Korean player or a Chinese player or even a Latin American player or a European player, because it's soccer Luffy and soccer is incredibly popular in other countries. I know soccer, or I guess football, is not very popular in the US specifically, but it's incredibly popular in other countries. And understanding the robustness of the hobby and what other people care about can be really important. Even if you don't collect Charizard cards, you have to respect that other players or other collectors like Charizard cards. So if you see a Charizard card that you think might be a great resource for you to collect and exchange with other players, I think it's a very fair play to collect some, just so that you can have some more diversity in what you are exchanging with other collectors. Now, I'm going to tell you, I don't think that the cards that I'm bringing are bad cards. I didn't get to show you guys all of the cards, by the way. I'm bringing a ton of different cards that are super cool as well. These are cool cards. I am absolutely happy to have these cards in my collection. That doesn't mean I am not willing to let go of them for something else that I think is cooler. You probably do not love everything inside of your collection equally. There are probably some items that you're more willing to let go of than others. But if you're willing to let go of them, that doesn't mean you don't have to value them. I think all of these cards are precious, and if someone wants to get these cards from me because I think these cards are really cool, even though I'm willing to let go of them, then they're going to have to give me cards that I think are really, really cool. And I have a ton of cards that I think are super cool. For instance, some of the cards that I'm looking to get from Worlds. Like, what am I trying to get back? If I'm trading with a Chinese collector, I might be interested in a ton of Chinese exclusive illustration rares, right? Oh my goodness, the Cubone card. This one is underrated for sure. But there's also the Meowth. There's a ton of really awesome cards now because Pokemon is truly a global game, and you can absolutely get some really cool cards from other players that they do not value as highly as you do. Why not? Why don't they value these cards the exact same level? Because it's a lot easier for them to re-obtain these cards than it is for you. If you want to get these cards, it might be very challenging because you don't live in China, but they do. So they can always get more copies of this, right? For instance, I can always get more copies of English illustration rare Meowth. I can always get more copies of English Jolteon V Max. But a Japanese player cannot just readily get more copies of this card. This might be the one time out of the year that they're ever going to Pokemon Worlds or coming to the US. This might be the first time they've been to the US in 5 years. This might be their only chance to get their hands on a raw near mint copy of Jolteon V Max. So for them, this is a really precious card that they would love to get their hands on. And I'm happy to exchange that with them. So that's how I experience collecting. Collecting is truly an exchange between other players. So I hope that kind of analogy makes sense. It's so much more rewarding to collect if you're willing to reach out and talk to other players. Right now, personally, when I put something up on eBay for sale, I'm getting hit up by people from Brazil. There are people in Brazil right now that are saying, hey, I really want your Celebrations Pokemon Center ETB. That communication would not have existed 5 years ago. There was no one from Brazil reaching out to me to buy Pokemon cards 5 years ago. There's absolutely people from around the whole entire globe reaching out today. It's truly a global game, and I think that's going to be a lot more entertaining and a lot more interesting to be a collector over the next couple of years. So I'm excited to continue on this journey. Let me know what your thoughts are. Hopefully this helps you on your own journey in terms of how you can accumulate resources in the world of Pokemon card collecting, how you can start off with a smaller collection and end up with a slightly larger one that you enjoy at the end of the day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.